Avril Lavigne was one of the biggest selling artists of the noughties decade, selling 30 million records in the space of a few years. Her debut album, Let Go, is still the biggest selling album of the 21st century by a Canadian artist. So, how is it possible that despite being nominated 8 times, Avril has never won a Grammy? And what might be some of the possible reasons she's never been awarded one? Which nominations did she receive over the years, and who were her competition? And is it likely she'll ever win one in the future? So many questions, let's find out. Despite being nominated 8 times, all those nominations came in the first 2 years of her career, and all of them were related to her debut album, the mega-selling Let Go. Avril was nominated for 5 at the 2003 Grammys, including Best Pop Female Vocal Performance for Complicated, but was beaten by Norah Jones' song Don't Know Why. She also got a nod in the Best Pop Vocal Album category for Let Go, but was again beaten by Norah Jones for her blockbuster album Come Away With Me. Avril was nominated for Best New Artist, but was beaten again by that pesky Norah Jones. In the Best Female Rock Performance category, Avril got a nod for Skater Boy, but was beaten by Sheryl Crow's Steve McQueen. And Avril was nominated for one of the evening's most prestigious prizes, Song of the Year for Complicated, but was beaten again by, yes you've guessed it, none other than Norah Jones. As you may already have guessed, Norah Jones was the big winner of the 2003 Grammys, picking up 5 awards in total. And in 2004, Avril was nominated again for 3 Grammys, including Best Female Rock Vocal Performance for Losing Grip, but was beaten by Pink's Trouble, Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for I'm With You, but was beaten by Aguilera's classic song Beautiful. And finally, she was nominated for Song of the Year, this time for I'm With You, but was beaten by the late Luther Vandross, who won for Dance With My Father. And with that, the Grammys haven't bothered Avril since. She released her follow-up album Under My Skin in 2004, which did well and included hits such as Don't Tell Me and Happy Ending. But nothing from Under My Skin had the impact that Complicated had a few years earlier. And in 2007, Avril released her 3rd album, The Best Damn Thing, which spawned the huge hit Girlfriend, but that was probably considered a bit too bubblegum and novelty songish for the Grammy committee, despite being a US #1. Subsequent albums since that never lived up to the commercial success of the first 3 and kind of flew under the Grammys' radar. Whether rightly or wrongly, Avril's musical credibility has been called into question right from the very beginning of her career. She was marketed as an authentic singer-songwriter, a pop-punk princess, the antithesis of pretty and polished pop singers such as Britney and Christina, who had dominated the charts in the late 90s and early noughties. And her image was definitely highly curated, whether it was organic or not. But many speculated that Avril's pop-punk image and sound was just manufactured by the record label and didn't really fit in with her backstory. Avril had cut her teeth singing Shania Twain songs at country fairs in Canada, and her earliest recordings were with Christian songwriters. It was pop producer Peter Zizzo, who at the time had mostly worked with Celine Dion and J-Lo, who brought Avril to New York and introduced her to music mogul L.A. Reid, the man who signed her to a multi-million-pound recording contract with Arista, a major recording label. So a very unpunk origin story then. These claims that Avril was just a manufactured act were strongly refuted by L.A. Reid at the time, who had this to say on the matter. There are no guys in suits that can manufacture artists like Avril Lavigne. I wish there were. The Matrix, the songwriting and production trio who co-wrote most of Avril's biggest hits, including Complicated, Skater Boy and I'm With You, were all pop songwriters, whose biggest writing credit at the time of working with Avril in 2001 was a song on Christina Aguilera's Christmas album. The Matrix comprised of Lauren Christy, Graham Edwards and Scott Spock. And rumours of Avril not really contributing to her songs have dogged the singer for years, particularly at the height of her career. Speculation at the time was in part fueled by Lauren Christy, who made the following comments in 2003 to Rolling Stone. According to The Matrix, they wrote the bulk of the 3 hit singles by themselves, following their first meeting with Lavigne. With those songs, we conceived the ideas on guitar and piano, says Christie. Avril would come in and sing a few melodies, change a word here or there. She came up with a couple of things in complicated, like instead of take off your stupid clothes, she wanted it to say preppy clothes. Avril strongly denied these claims at the time, and The Matrix did issue a statement a few years later in 2007 to clarify their position on the matter. The songs were conceived on piano and guitar by 4 people, The Matrix and Avril. And to be clear, Avril was instrumental in the song's creation. We were all very close during the making of the record. When it became a huge hit, people who were not there at the time of the making of the record decided to draw and put forth in the press their own conclusions as to how creativity took place. This continues. We remain big Avril fans both musically and personally, as well as very much recognise and believe in her and her talents. Avril never worked with The Matrix again, presumably in part because of those original comments, and also because she wanted to pursue a less pop sound. And she chose to write half of her second album, Under My Skin, released in 2004 with Chantal Kreviazuk, a Canadian singer-songwriter who has gone on to write for artists such as Kelly Clarkson and Christina Aguilera. But speaking to Performers Songwriters magazine in June 2007, Chantal had this to say about Avril's songwriting. I mean, Avril a songwriter, Avril doesn't really sit and write songs by herself or anything. Avril will also cross the ethical line and no one says anything. That's why I'll never work with her again. I sent her a song 2 years ago called Contagious, and I just saw the track listing to this album, and there's a song called Contagious on it, and my name's not on it. What do you do with that? Evan Taubenfeld, who co-wrote the song Contagious on Avril's third album, refuted Chantal's comments by saying, I can say that Contagious was 100% between Avril and I. Chantal had nothing to do with it. Chantal later apologised and retracted her comments after Lavigne's lawyers threatened her with legal action. Avril attributed Chantal's comments to sour grapes as she hadn't worked with Chantal on her third album, which had just been released a few months earlier. Chantal issued a statement saying she had made a mistake and that the 2 songs had nothing in common, and asked for her comments to be disregarded. But something about the story just doesn't add up. Everyone knows you can't copyright a song title, and I'm sure Chantal, as a professional songwriter, knew that better than anyone. I really can't imagine she would lash out at Avril because she took a song title. Whatever the truth is, I'm sure Chantal realised it could discourage other artists from working with her in the future. And both Chantal and Avril shared the same management company network at the time. Avril's former manager Terry McBride had this to say in defense of the singer. This girl has proven time after time with probably a dozen different songwriters that she's the real deal. How many more times does she have to prove it? And in 2007, Avril's songwriting came under fire again when her huge #1 smash Girlfriend was met with plagiarism claims. The Rubinoos lead singer Tommy Dunbar and James Gangwer, who had written the band's 1979 hit I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend, filed a lawsuit against Avril and the song's co-writer Dr. Luke for infringement of copyright of their song. And the choruses of the 2 songs, Girlfriend and I Wanna Be Your Boyfriend, do sound remarkably alike, melodically and rhythmically. After a confidential settlement was reached between the 2 parties, which of course means the conditions of the settlement had to remain secret, Tommy Dunbar and James Gangwer issued a statement saying they now believed that any similarities between the songs resulted in commonly used lyrics, and they now exonerated Avril and Luke from any sort of wrongdoing. Admittedly, lawsuits like this are 10 a penny for major recording artists, but the difference with this one is that Avril and Dr. Luke decided to settle the case quietly out of court. It's strange how the 2 songwriters seem to change their tune, no pun intended, once a settlement had been reached, but I will say no more. Whilst these rumours about Avril's songwriting must have harmed her reputation amongst critics, there might be other reasons why she's never won a coveted Grammy. On her third album, Avril worked closely with Dr. Luke, and on her fourth album she worked with Dr. Luke's other long-term collaborator, Max Martin. Max and Luke, to a lesser degree, have had some of the biggest pop hits of the last 25 years. There are too many to mention. Katy Perry is also a long-time collaborator of the two, and she has also struggled to win over the Grammy committee, having been nominated 13 times and, like Avril, never winning one. Pink and Kelly Clarkson, who have also worked extensively with Dr. Luke and Max Martin over the years, have won 3 Grammys apiece, but they're both powerhouse vocalists. And Taylor Swift made most of her 5th album, 1989, with Max Martin, and it won 2 Grammys, Best Pop Vocal Album and the Album of the Year in 2016. But I guess Taylor's musical credibility was never really called into question in the same way that Avril's was. Taylor won Album of the Year relatively early in her career for her second album, Fearless, in 2010. Perhaps there is snobbery about working with such pure pop producers, who for the most part are heavily focused on writing highly commercial, radio-friendly material. And maybe Avril was just really unlucky back in 03 and 04 and faced some really tough competition. So is it likely that Avril will ever win a Grammy now? Well, her record sales aren't what they used to be. And she is now signed to Travis Barker's label DTA Records, which is owned by the Warner Music Group. And even though Avril is still relatively young, she has now become an elder pop star of sorts. Gen Z music artists such as Olivia Rodrigo, Phoebe Bridgers and Billie Eilish have all cited her as an influence on their work. And plenty of musicians make their best albums in their 40s, 50s and beyond. And who knows, Avril might still have the best music of her career ahead of her. And even if she doesn't, Avril has accomplished extraordinary feats in her life, and her music has connected with millions of people the world over. And I'm sure she would agree that's a far greater prize than any Grammy. And don't forget to check out my other video about the meaning of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill. Thanks for watching.